What's the latest on the Israel-Hamas war? The IDF launches a massive preemptive strike in Lebanon, targeting Hezbollah's missiles and rocket arrays as the group was preparing its long-awaited retaliation. Negotiation summit concluded in Cairo with no results as fighting continues throughout the Gaza Strip, and flare-ups are also being reported throughout the West Bank. I'm Alon Burstein. Let's dive deep into the latest on the Israel-Hamas war. On day 324 of the war, the biggest highlights relate to Hezbollah's planned attack in retaliation for the assassination of Fuad Shukr last month. According to reports, Hezbollah was waiting until it received a signal that the negotiations were breaking down so as not to be seen as the ones who torpedoed a potential ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. Either way, on Saturday night, Israel received intelligence that Hezbollah was preparing a massive missile and rocket attack. According to some estimates, Hezbollah was planning to fire 6,000 rockets and missiles targeting the central parts of Israel, and the IDF decided to launch a major preemptive strike. At 4:45 a.m. local time, over 100 warplanes launched the largest offensive in Lebanon thus far in the war. The attack reportedly lasted over 20 minutes in dozens of different locations, with some reports stating that over 270 airstrikes were carried out, targeting Hezbollah launchers, missile arrays, as well as drone launching sites. Later reports stated that U.S. intelligence also assisted in Israel's attack. However, the U.S. later clarified that the country did not participate in the actual attacks. It did, however, lend intelligence assistance to Israel when it carried out that preemptive strike. At around 5:30 in the morning, again local time in the Middle East, Hezbollah began a major bombardment of northern Israel, firing hundreds of rockets, missiles, and drones into the area. Israel declared an unprecedented state of emergency throughout the entire country. Again, this is a state of emergency that's declared for the first time since the war began, and also shut down the airport in anticipation of Hezbollah possibly targeting Israel's national airport. Hezbollah later stated that its barrages of rockets were targeting IDF bases in the northern parts of Israel, and that the aim of that barrage was to allow the drones that the movement was launching to penetrate into the heart of the country. Within several hours, by 9 a.m., Hezbollah announced that it had completed its retaliation for the day, announcing that it launched over 340 rockets and that its main target was the IDF intelligence base near Glilot. Some Hezbollah commentators stated that the base was in fact hit by Hezbollah drones. However, the IDF later denied this, stating that no base was actually hit by the Hezbollah attack. The IDF also reported that according to the military, Hezbollah managed to launch only 230 rockets and over 20 drones, but that the main part of the attack was in fact foiled by the IDF's preemptive strike. By day's end, the reports are that 3 people were killed in Lebanon in the IDF attack, and 1 IDF soldier was killed actually as a result of an IDF interceptor that either misfired or, after it intercepted a drone, the fragments crashed and killed the IDF soldier. The IDF in turn stated that at least 6 Hezbollah operatives were killed in the attacks in Lebanon. Where things stand right now, Reuters reported by the end of the day that both Israel and Hezbollah had sent messages to each other stating that they are not interested in further escalations. Furthermore, what also possibly indicates that Hezbollah is considering its retaliation complete at this stage was a message that was put out by Hezbollah's leader Hassan Nasrallah, in which he stated that Israel's waiting period is not over for the regional attacks because they still have to deal with the retaliation from Iran and from the Houthis. However, this is very different than the previous statements that Nasrallah was saying that Hezbollah's retaliation is going to be ongoing. Now he stated, well, the retaliation is going to be ongoing, however, it is going to come from Iran and the Houthis, implying at least that Hezbollah is considering its retaliation at this point complete. Right now, the state of emergency in Israel has been cancelled. The situation has returned to quote-unquote normal with ongoing regular, again quote-unquote, rocket fire from Hezbollah and quote-unquote regular IDF attacks in southern Lebanon. Remains to be seen if Hezbollah does in fact consider the retaliation complete or not. We'll find out more about that, obviously, as the days go on. On the negotiation front in the last several days, a summit meeting concluded in Cairo today, attended by the top negotiating teams with regards to the war: CIA Director William Burns, Qatari Prime Minister Mohammed Athani, the head of the Egyptian intelligence Abbas Kamel, and the top Israeli team, the head of the Mossad Dedi Barnea, the head of the Shabak Ronen Bar, and General Nitzan Alon of the IDF. Unlike in the previous summit, Hamas actually did send a delegation to the negotiations. However, since Israel and Hamas refused to have direct negotiations, they actually were in the same building, the Israeli delegation and the Hamas delegation. However, they did not meet. The different negotiators relayed the messages from one another in order to try to bring the two teams together, at least on some of the sticking points. As expected, however, while the talks were reportedly conducted in a positive atmosphere, the summit concluded with no real breakthrough. First, while in the previous summit in Qatar it was decided to establish 4 working teams to negotiate the various different sides of the hostage deal, and these teams were supposed to have met in the last week and a half and then come together in this summit to conclude the negotiations. In fact, only one of those teams is reported to have held any meetings, and in addition, that one team, the Israeli-Egyptian team negotiating the IDF presence along the Philadelphia line, that is the border between Gaza and Egypt, reported throughout the week repeated stalemates in the discussions. Only towards the end of the week was Egypt even willing to deliver Israel's position to Hamas for consideration. Later today, however, one of Hamas's key figures, Osama Hamdan, announced that the group officially rejected what Israel was suggesting. Osama Hamdan again stated that Hamas will not accept any IDF presence along the Philadelphia line or the Netzarim corridor, and that the movement is adhering to its initial framework that it agreed to on July 2nd, which requires complete IDF withdrawal from the Gaza Strip. Where do things lie right now with regards to the ongoing negotiations? While the summit meeting officially concluded, lower-level negotiating teams are still in contact. At the present time, however, there's no scheduled summit meeting to again bring the teams together, and it's unclear if those other teams that were supposed to be established after the previous summit in Qatar are going to be established throughout the week. Maybe are they going to negotiate the different facets they were supposed to negotiate or not? Different newspapers are reporting different things. Al-Hadath reported today that Hamas is outright rejecting the Israeli proposals and is not willing to continue the ongoing negotiations until Israel comes back to the table with what Hamas has already agreed to. In turn, Al-Arabi Al-Jadid reported today that the Qatari Prime Minister is going to Iran in order to try to bring Iran in to somehow de-escalate the region as part of the negotiations, because Al-Arabi Al-Jadid does expect a breakthrough in the coming week. Again, that's what was reported there. In Israel, there were different reports, again, of pessimism with regards to the possibility of a breakthrough. There was also a political uproar when the IDF spokesperson, Daniel Hagari, said in a press statement that the main object of the war is to return the hostages. A, quote, senior political official, which is code name for the Prime Minister's office, put out a scathing message saying that that is not the main objective of the war. That is one of the main objectives of the war, and the other objectives are destroying Hamas, making sure there's no threat from the Gaza Strip. Right now, the situation is in a bit of disarray with regards to can the negotiations actually continue, in what format, and is there going to be a breakthrough? The sides are going to continue talking. Obviously, I'll report about that if there are any breakthroughs, but right now it just appears to be low-level negotiations, possibly trying to find some way to bring the sides together, maybe on one of the items, and that will be a breakthrough towards the other items. We will see more about that in the coming days. Alongside this, the West Bank arena has had continued escalations in the last several days. In addition to the IDF operations that are constantly being reported coming out of Tulkarem, Nablus, and Jenin, the different escalations have included a Palestinian car ramming attack injuring 2 people near the Ariel settlement, as well as an explosive device that was detonated targeting an Israeli bus in Gush Etzion. No one was injured in that attack. In addition to that, there were different settler attacks that were reported against Palestinians. The largest of these took place when 2 different raids happened simultaneously, one in the Susia village and one in the Rujib village. The IDF announced that in the Rujib attack, mass settlers left the Itamar settlement and stormed the village, torching homes and throwing stones. No arrests were reported in either of those incidents. Meanwhile, in the Gaza Strip, the main arenas of fighting continue to be Rafah and Tel Sultan, different areas of Han Yunis, and in the central parts of the Gaza Strip. In Tel Sultan, both the Al-Qassam brigades and the IDF have reported intensive fighting in the last several days. I've mentioned several times this has become one of the most intensive fighting areas throughout the entire Gaza Strip since the war began. In addition to that, there's ongoing fighting in the different regions of Han Yunis, and there's also intensifying fighting is being reported around the Netzarim corridor. This is in the central parts of the Gaza Strip. That is the corridor that the IDF maintains, cutting the Gaza Strip effectively from north to south. The IDF has expanded its activity in the area with reports of intensive fighting in the southern parts of Gaza City, that is the southern parts of northern Gaza that touch upon the Netzarim corridor. In addition, there's also been reports in the outskirts of the different refugee camps in the central parts of the Gaza Strip. There was also a report in the last several hours that the IDF has increased its evacuation orders for Palestinians in Deir el-Balah. This is the last major city in the Gaza Strip that the IDF has not invaded with ground units. It is in the central parts of the Gaza Strip. Already almost a week ago, the IDF started issuing evacuation orders to Palestinians from different neighborhoods in Deir el-Balah. Those orders are now increasing. There's no reports that the IDF has launched a major ground offensive in Deir el-Balah. Maybe this is up and coming in the coming days. Remains to be seen what the IDF is exactly planning, but those orders are being expanded. According to the latest report, they are affecting some 100,000 Palestinians in and around the areas of Deir el-Balah. In addition to that, another incident from today was that Hamas fired a rocket towards the center of Israel after Hezbollah concluded its retaliation. The Al-Qassam brigades announced that the rocket was fired towards Tel Aviv. I mention this because this is the first time since January that Hamas has fired such a long-range rocket. It was not reported where it was fired from in the Gaza Strip, but it is another indication not only does Hamas still have these long-range rockets, but it has the ability to launch them without being preemptively discovered by the IDF. Regarding casualties in the war, the IDF is reporting that 338 IDF soldiers were killed in the Gaza Strip since the invasion began at the end of October, and 2,254 IDF soldiers were injured in the Gaza Strip since the invasion began. The Palestinian Health Ministry in the Gaza Strip is reporting that 40,405 Palestinians have been killed in the Gaza Strip since the war began. 93,468 Palestinians were injured in the Gaza Strip since the war began. I remind everyone that the Palestinian Health Ministry in the Gaza Strip does not distinguish between militants and civilians. According to the IDF estimates, some 17,000 militants have been killed in the Gaza Strip since the war began. Possibly that is 17,000 out of the 40,000. Also, this could just be different reporting. Obviously, we learn more about that from the different sources every day. Those are my highlights from the last several days. If you find these reports informative, please do remember to hit that like button, subscribe, send them to anyone who you think may be interested in the war. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. I'm Alon Burstein. I'm a visiting assistant professor and Israel Institute fellow in the Department of Political Science at Tufts University. Thanks for watching.